Hey guys, this is Eggy with the Math Egghead. I made another video about adding and subtracting integers. I've made a couple of videos with integers as far as the introduction of positive and negative numbers and also using the number lines and showing you a couple of tricks. If there's a specific math problem you would like for me to work on, feel free to always email me or leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a thumbs up. And again, if you have a specific math problem that you would like to see on this channel, always feel free to reach out. Let's get started. Alright guys, so previous video that you saw with integers, I was actually writing them down on a piece of paper and recording it on my phone, but I felt that the picture was really small, so right now I'm working on a whiteboard using some markers, and I am going to be exploring a couple of ways on how to bring these videos to you. I know a lot of people like the style videos. I am contemplating on working on that style as well, but if there's something specific that you want to see on this channel as far as like what style, like the whiteboard, the paper, or the Khan Academy style videos, just let me know, because I know sometimes the whiteboards can be a little distracting. So right now we're just doing the trick, which is the number line. Now, as you can see, I want you to pause the video and copy this number line down. As you can see, the 0 is always the starting point, and when you're subtracting, you're going to the left. When you're adding, you're going to the right. So right now, I'm just going to show you on a number line how this would look. Now, there is a couple of ways and rules when you're dealing with addition versus when you're dealing with subtraction. In this video, I am going to show you a couple of ways on how you would read the actual number problem and how you would decide whether if you're going to the left or if you're going to the right. I feel like this number line is a little too small, but I'm going to show you a real easy trick here. The first problem that I wanted to start off is with 3 plus 4. Intuitively, we know that 3 plus 4 is 7. So on the number line, you would start at 3. You're adding a positive number, so you're going to the right. So 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. And that lets you know that you would stop on the number line on the number 7. But that's easy. That's something that all of you probably already know intuitively. But let me show you something else as far as how you would really see that and how you would decide if you're going to the left and you're going to the right. Now, the reason always that I say 0 is the starting point is that sometimes it can get a little confusing on when you're writing or reading the actual problem left to right, and you're wondering, are you dealing with a negative number? Are you dealing with a positive number? Does the subtraction actually go to the number, or is there an additional sign that I should be seeing? Let me make this number line bigger so that you guys can see. We're starting off with the 0, which is our starting point. And you already know on the right side of 0, those are the positive numbers. And you're adding to the right, so the numbers get bigger. On the left side of 0, you're subtracting. The numbers get smaller, and those are the negative numbers. So let's start off with another problem. Let's see. Let me show you again how that would look, but instead with a negative 4. So on the number line, we would start with the positive 3, but as you can see, we're adding negative 4. So what would that mean? Well, when you're adding a negative number, you're going towards the left. Remember, 3 plus negative 4 is the same as 3 minus 4. I know it can get a little confusing, but I am going to show you on the number line, how that looks. Let's start with our positive number 3. Let me just get all these lines. Okay. So let's start with 3. And we're adding 4 negative spaces. So that means we're going to the left. When you're adding negative numbers, you're going to the left. When you're adding positive numbers, you're going to the right. That's another rule that you guys should see. I'm going to write that down as well. Let me just finish up here. So we know that 3 plus negative 4 is negative 1, and 3 minus 4 is the same thing as negative 1. So those two equations do equal each other. Let me get rid of this and show you another problem here. I like the whiteboard because I don't waste as much paper, but it gets a little icky here. Negative 3 plus 4. Well, we know that negative 3 plus 4 is the same as 4 minus 3. Oh, it looks like I wasn't in frame here, but that's 4 minus 3. Now, negative 3 minus positive 4 is not the same, because negative 3 minus positive 4 would actually be negative 7. So they're not the same. But let's do this on the number line. Negative 3, we start here and we are adding a positive 4. So we know we're going to the right side. So we end up at 1. Now let's do another problem here. Don't get confused with which number equals each other as far as rewriting the problems. Just try to actually understand what you're reading. Let's start with another problem, because it's always good to understand the second number, and then there are going to be problems where you actually have to add 3 or 4 numbers that have a different sign. So it's good to start off slowly. Let's work on another one. What about negative 3 plus negative 4? How would you guys do that on the number line? Well, 3 plus 4, we know that it equals 7. And negative 3 and negative 4 equals negative 7. So they don't equal each other. Those are two separate positions on the number line. I was going to write equal, but as we all know, those two are not equal. Now, let me go ahead and show you on the number line how this is going to look. Let's start up negative 3. Negative 3, and we're adding a negative 4. So we know that we're going to the left. Remember, when you're adding a negative number, you're going to the left. So 4 spaces, you're going to end up on negative 7. Remember, always look at what you're doing. Are you subtracting or are you adding? Right now, we are just adding. So read the problem from left to right. Negative 3 plus a negative 4. We know when we're adding a negative number, we're going to the left. Let's start another problem here. Let me just get rid of all this gunk. Get rid of this gunk here. Let's try another problem here. Now, let's start with 3 minus 4. Let's do a subtraction problem really quick, because I do want to show you on the number line how visually this looks very different. Now, 3 minus 4, we know it would be negative 1. And we know that 4 minus 3 is 1, so that's not the same thing. So since we're subtracting, it's 4 spaces and it's negative 1. Now, 3 minus 4 and 4 minus 3 are not the same thing. But 3 plus negative 4 is the same thing. Now, I don't want you guys to get hung up on rewriting the problems right away. If there's an issue as far as you're not really understanding what they're asking you, or you don't know whether to go to the left or the right, read the problem out. We're seeing that 3 minus 4, well, we know that we are subtracting, so automatically we're going to the left. Now, let me just get rid of all this little gunk here. I love the whiteboard, but it's just this gunk. Now, let's try 3 minus negative 4. What would you do then? Well, 3 minus negative 4 is the same as, I was out of frame here. We know that 3 minus negative 4 is the same as 3 plus 4, which is 7. Again, I'm only rewriting it for those that like to visually see it, because they do like to work with addition problems. And when you are subtracting integers, the rule is that you must rewrite the problem into a addition problem, and the second number you have to rewrite it of the opposite that it is. So in this case, you would rewrite it as 3 plus positive 4, because you're dealing with a negative 4. On the number line, you would start at 3, and then you would move 4 spaces to the right, because you're dealing with a positive number. But again, if that's difficult for you guys to see, remember, subtraction, you must rewrite the problem into an addition problem. Think of it as when you're thinking about your checking account. You don't want to hear that you have to give out money. You don't want to hear that it's negative. You just want to keep on adding those dollars to your checking account. So always think of it that way. When you're dealing with subtractions of the integers, think of, nope, I have to rewrite this as an addition problem, and I have to change the second number
guys, let
to
me
a
just
positive.
get rid of all this gunk.
Or the opposite.
Problem.
In this case, it was positive. Let's work a little bit on the addition problems first. What is 7 plus negative 4? Well, remember, we're adding. So I know intuitively I have to go to the right, but we're adding a negative number. So I know I have to go to the left. So we start off at 7 and we move 4 spaces to the left because it's a negative number. So we end up at 3. Now, let me get rid of this gunk. I do want to show you though, 7 plus 4 is the same as 7 minus 4. For those who like to rewrite the problems. But remember, in addition, you don't have to rewrite the problems. That's only a rule in subtraction. But I only do it because a lot of you guys like to visually see it and know what is it equal to. And there are some problems that equal to each other, and there are some that can be a little bit more complicated. So in addition, I would suggest not to rewrite the problems, not as of yet. And let me give you a little pointer here. If you're moving and if you're adding, a positive number, you go to the right side. If you're adding a negative number, you're going towards the left. And same thing for subtracting. If you're subtracting a positive number, you're going to the right. If you're subtracting a negative number, you're going to the left. Pause the video and write this rule down, or write at least the number line so that you guys can visually have that. So you guys don't have to always keep rewriting the rules or the number line. You just can take a quick glance and see exactly which direction you should be going. So let's try 7 plus negative 2. So we know that 7 plus negative 2 is the same thing as 7 minus 2. So let's start at 7. We know that we're adding a negative number, so we know that we have to go to the left. So let's go 2 spaces, 1, 2, and that gives us 5. So 7 plus negative 2 and 7 minus 2 is the same thing as 5. My frame was a little out of focus, but that was a number 5. Let me just get rid of this gunk here. Let's try another problem. Now, let's see. And I want you guys to get a hang of the addition problems first, because adding integers is easy. And I just want you guys to get a grasp. And then once you know how to add integers, you guys will be able to do every problem. So let's try negative 5 plus 4. Well, we know that negative 5 plus 4 is the same thing as 4 minus 5, which is negative 1. But let me show you on the number line what it looks like. Negative 5, we're adding a positive number, so we know we're going to the right. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're ending up at negative 1. Let me erase this and get rid of all this gunk. Okay. Let's try another problem. Let's try negative 5 plus 6. Well, we know that negative 5 plus 6 is the same as 6 minus 5, which is 1. But let me show you on the number line what that would look like. We start off at negative 5 and we're adding a positive number, so we know that we have to go to the right side. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Remember, the 0 spot does count as a spot, so that's 5 spaces, and we do end up at positive 1. Don't forget that that 0 does mean a separate entity. It is a spot. A lot of people think that on the number line the 0 does not count as a spot, but it does. It's still a number. It's still a space. You do need to include that when you're dealing with negative and positive numbers. Let me show you another example here. Let me just get rid of this gunk. Okay. I hope this board is really clear for you guys. Let's try negative 5 plus 3. Negative 3, actually. I separated it with the parentheses because I wanted to show you guys. Now, we know that negative 5 plus negative 3 is the same thing as negative 3 plus negative 5. There was no way to rewrite that, only just flipping the numbers. But let me show you on the number line how that looks. And remember, when you're adding integers with the same sign, you just add as normal and keep the sign. So if you're adding 2 positives, keep adding, keep the sign. If you're adding 2 negatives, keep adding, keep the sign. Remember, that is the easiest rule you have here. When you're adding integers with the same sign, keep the sign and add as normal. Now, I wanted to move the board so you guys could see the negative 8 and put myself in a better frame here. Alright guys, let's start something else. Let's work on another problem. I cleaned up the board so that you guys can see. Now, remember, as I was stating, when you're adding 2 integers with the same sign, you add as normal, keep the sign. But now, let's try something else. Let me show you on the number line how that's going to look. before I even jump into something else. But as I said before, when you're adding two integers with the same sign, you just add as normal and keep the sign. So with that even being said, 6 plus 4 is 10. They're both negative, so it would be negative 10. So let's start at negative 6. We know that we're adding a negative number, so we have to go to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're ending at negative 10. And even if you decided to rewrite that, you would just flip the numbers. Negative 4 plus negative 6 is negative 10. So we know that intuitively. That's going to be one of the easiest things that you guys learn when it's adding integers or dealing with integers altogether. Let me get rid of this. Let me erase. Let's start off with something else. What about negative 4 plus negative 2? Remember the rule. We're adding two integers with the same sign. So we would add as normal. 4 plus 2 is 6, but it's a negative, so it's negative 6. If you decided to rewrite that, you just flip the numbers. Negative 2 plus negative 4 equals the same thing as negative 4 plus negative 2. But let's show this on the number line. Negative 4 plus a negative number, so we are going to the left, 2 spaces, we're ending up at negative 6. All the rules that I'm mentioning, just feel free to write them down. And again, it's always good to rewrite the number line and add those little arrows, like adding on the right side, subtracting on the left, so that you guys can see which direction you guys should be heading to. Let me get rid of this. Let's start off with another problem. Let's start with 6 plus negative 2. So 6 plus negative 2, is it the same as negative 2 plus 6? Oh, let me get rid of that. It was not 4, it's 2. So we know that 6 plus negative 2 is the same as 6 minus 2. But let me show you on the number line what that looks like. Because remember, I don't want you guys to get caught up on rewriting the problems. So 6 plus negative 2, we're adding a negative integer, so we know we're going to the left. So it's 2 spaces, 1, 2. We're subtracting, so we know that we're going to the left if you wanted to rewrite the problem. But since it's an addition problem, let's just keep it at that. We're adding a negative number, so we know that we're going to the left. I wrote a little cheat symbol at the bottom, even though it's written at the top. I just want you guys to see that quickly when you guys are adding or subtracting. Let me just rewrite this because I want this to be neater for you guys. Let's start with negative 7 plus 4 plus negative 3. Well, what would you guys work on first? Well, we know that negative 7 plus 4 is automatically negative 3. We're adding 4 spaces that are positive, right? So we're starting at negative 7. We're adding a positive 4, so we know we're going to the right. So we know we end up at negative 3. Now, negative 3 plus negative 3. Well, we know 3 plus 3 is 6, but it's negative because both of these integers are negative. Remember, when you're adding 2 integers, 3 integers, 10 integers, when they have the same sign, you add as normal and you keep the sign. So let's add negative 3 spaces here. We're going to the left. So we know that this equals negative 6. Again, guys, I apologize that this is out of frame. I really tried to record this better with my iPhone, but it seems like I'm recording it incorrectly when I'm recording it straight up. But let me know if you guys like when I am showing problems on the whiteboard versus me writing on paper. And again, like I said, I'm going to try the Khan Academy style. And I know another tutor, the organic chemistry tutor, does the digital board or the digital pen style. So let me know if that's something that you guys feel more comfortable with, a black background versus the white background, because I know a couple of people don't like it. Okay, let's start with something simple. What's 8 minus 4? Well, we know that 8 minus 4 is 4. And if you wanted to rewrite this, you don't have to. But if you wanted to rewrite this, you know you could just put negative 4 plus 8. But why would you do that? You don't need to. But remember, when you're subtracting, you're supposed to rewrite it into an addition problem. But this case, you don't have to, because the bigger number is the first number, 8 minus 4. But when you're dealing with subtraction, and let's say the first number is a smaller number than the second number, that's when we actually would prefer for our students to rewrite the problem as an addition problem. Now, let me show you another problem. I cleared up the board. Let's start with negative 2 minus, let's see, negative 7. So remember what I mentioned before. The first number is actually smaller than 7, right? So we would prefer if you rewrite this. So negative 2 plus negative 7. Now, the rule is when you're dealing with subtraction of integers, you would rewrite the problem into addition, and the second number, you would change it to the opposite. So here, it's negative 2 minus 7. What's the opposite of 7? Negative 7. So you would just rewrite this. Now, again, let me just show you on the number line what that would look like here. It can get a little confusing if you start to rewrite and you get stuck and you're like, wait, does this subtraction sign belong to the number? Or what if there's two subtractions? That's why I want you guys to just stick with the rules. When you're dealing with subtraction, you rewrite the problem into an addition problem. You keep the first number, you change the subtraction to an addition, and you change the sign of the second number. The second number will always be the opposite. So let me show you on the number line what this looks like here. Let me just get rid of this because this is confusing to a lot of you guys, and I don't want you guys to be confused. So negative 2 minus 7 equals negative 2. It's the same thing as negative 7 minus negative 2. But I don't want you guys to rewrite it like that. I want you guys to rewrite it how you should be rewriting the problem. So when you're dealing with a subtraction, it should be negative 2 plus negative 7. Let me show you on the on the number line what that looks like. I don't know why I keep calling this a timeline. I'm sorry, guys. So let's start. It's negative 2, and we're adding a negative 7. And you know when you're adding a negative 7, you're going to the left. So let's move it 7 spaces to the left, and that's going to give you a negative 9. Okay. Remember, I mentioned before that when we're dealing with subtraction, we don't want to know about subtraction. We just want to know about addition. Now, at any point, if you ever wanted to rewrite, but you're not sure if this really equals the same number, you can rewrite the problem and do them on the number line and see for yourself, Does this give me the same number? Do I end up on the same spot? If it doesn't end up on the same spot or give you the same number, then it does not equal. The equations are not the same. So again, I do suggest when you're dealing with subtraction, rewrite the problem. Make it an addition and change the second number to the opposite. In this case, -2 plus -7. There's so many ways you can visually see that. I used to say to myself, if we're subtracting, I know that negative number or that negative sign actually belongs to the second number. So I change everything. I put an addition and I let the 7, or the second number in this case, keep its negative or subtract symbol. So I would just automatically put -2 plus -7. But that'll come to you the more you practice. Let me write another problem down. Okay, let's start with -6 minus 5. Remember what I said before. Automatically, I know that the negative symbol, the subtraction symbol goes to the number 5. So I would change everything to addition and just put -6 plus -5. But if you want to follow the rule, which is change the subtraction problem into an addition problem, and change the second number to the opposite. So we know here that it would equal -11. But remember what we said before, when you're adding two integers with the same sign, add as normal, keep the sign. In this case, it was -6 plus -5, so that goes back to -11. Let me show you on the number line. See, -11. And that's how it would look because you're adding a negative number. I know this can get a little confusing, but I want you to always remember, what are you doing? Are you adding or are you subtracting? If you're subtracting, you know that you want to just change this to addition automatically. Automatically just change it. Don't even think twice. Minus turns into a positive. You're subtracting. Let me show you another problem here. -6 minus -3. Well, remember what I just said. You would just change it. But in this case, you see how there's two negatives? The two negatives, meaning the subtraction and the -3, those two negative signs, when you multiply a negative and a negative, that gives you a positive. So automatically it would be -6 plus 3. Or you could think of it the way that I was stating before. When you see a subtraction equation, you automatically change it to addition. And each sign has to be taken into consideration. The first number keeps its sign. The second number, you change it to the opposite. So in this case, -3, that negative symbol and that subtraction symbol, those are two negatives, those equal positive. Let me just write the rules down really quick. Negative times negative is positive. Positive times positive equals negative. Positive times positive is positive, and positive times negative is negative, and positive times negative is negative. Write those little 4 rules down. That'll be really easy when you're dealing with subtraction. So -6. Now remember, we're adding a +3 because we are rewriting this. So I went backwards. That was not correct. Let me just change this really quick and erase this. All right, guys. So -6 minus -3, when you do rewrite that, it does turn into an addition problem. So it's -6 plus +3, which equals -3. We are adding a positive number, so we know that we're going towards the right side. So let's start at negative 6. 1, 2, 3 on the right. So we're ending up at negative 3. Remember, when you're dealing with a subtraction problem, integers, then you do change the problem and change it to an addition problem. Let me change all of this. And like I said before, don't forget to write those little rules down that I have at the bottom so that can help you. Let's try something else. Negative 4 minus negative 5. Well, we know that the negative symbol on 5 and the subtraction sign minus, so the negative times a negative is positive. So that changes the equation. Negative 4 plus 5. We know it's 1. So let's start again. Start at negative 4. We're adding a positive 5. So we're going to the right. So it would be 1. Remember that 0 does count as a spot. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right. And we do end up at 1. Let me erase this and let me show you another problem. What about negative 9 minus negative 3? Again, we know that those two negative symbols, the negative and the subtraction, multiplied together is a positive. When you're multiplying any two signs that are alike, it is positive. So we start at negative 9. We're adding a positive 3. We're going to the right, 1, 2, 3, and we end up with negative 6. This is all going to become very easy for you guys. What about if we had negative 7 minus negative 2? Well, we know the negative and the subtraction, those two like symbols are negative. When you multiply them, they turn into a positive. So it's negative 7 plus 2, and that would equal negative 5. Let me show you on the on the number line, what that looks like. Negative 7, positive 2, 2 spaces to the right, negative 5. Okay. Now, pause the video. I do want you guys to take a look at the problems that we've worked on so that you guys can really see the rules that I've been speaking about when you're dealing with adding integers and when you're subtracting integers. Let me just erase all of this and give you a really clean space so that you can actually screenshot, and it'll be a good thing to glance at when you're confused and when you don't know whether you should go to the left or the right. Let me just write another rule here. So when you're adding integers, remember you're looking at the sign. When you're adding two integers with the same sign, you add as normal, keep the sign. When you're subtracting integers, you rewrite that equation and turn it into an addition problem. So remember, the first number, you keep it. You turn that subtraction into an addition, and the second number you change it to the opposite. Or like I said, visually I usually just add the number, and remember that the second number needs to keep that subtraction sign. Okay guys, so that concludes the video on integers. Now remember, if you guys want more practice on integers, feel free to comment and I'll make another video, a shorter one of course. It's really important though that you guys get this topic down, because in order for you to be very successful going forward in math, you do need to be able to manipulate the equations and understand positive and negative integers. Now, if you have a specific math problem or a specific topic you want to see, feel free. Comment down below, email me, or visit me on my Patreon page. My Patreon page actually has longer videos and they go more in depth on each math topic. And feel free to subscribe, share, and leave a thumbs up. Have a good one.